Okay, today's daf we're learning is Shekalim daf Dalid. Okay, just a few short announcements. Tomorrow's Erev Pesach, regular shiur as usual on the Zoom also. And then after class, all the other shiurim will go up for Shabbat and Sunday. Monday, even though it's Chag in Chutz La'aretz, it's not in Israel, and therefore there'll be a regular shiur Monday morning, and that will go up Monday morning after I finish teaching. And if anybody wants it earlier, I'll be posting. I said I would post them early. I'll be posting them later this morning. So if anybody wants a link, you can email me and I will send you the link at info@hadran.org.il. I'll send you the link to audio. As I said, I don't want to put it up on the site. It'll just confuse people in terms of the order of the shiurim. But if you want the audio version, I can send you a link to it. It'll be accessible later this morning. Those of you who wrote me already, I will send you later today. Okay, getting started with our daf. So today's daf is sponsored by Yomi in honor of her beloved father, Rabbi David Younger. There is no doubt how much we would have enjoyed learning daf Yomi together. Your wisdom continues to inspire me with continued love, admiration, and much appreciation. And by Ruth Winkelron on the occasion of getting vaccinated against COVID-19 3 weeks ago. May you all be healthy. And by Eva Schweber in memory of her father, Ken Schweber, Zichrono Livracha. Okay, we'll start again from the bottom, from the beginning of the Mishnah, the halacha Daled that we started yesterday. We were talking about who is obligated in this machatzira shekel. So even though it says, nashim v'avadim uktanim, even though you can't take collateral from them, if they gave, you can accept it from them. In other words, their machatzira shekel could be accepted. Now, why would you think it couldn't be? Well, we're going to see right now that there's certain people that we cannot accept their machatzira shekel. Okay, we're not allowed to. Who's that? If a Gentile or a Kuti. So who are the Kutim? They were the Shomronim. They were the people that were brought by the Assyrians when the Assyrians sent the kingdom, the Israelite kingdom, into exile. Toward the end of the Second Temple period. They brought, their whole tactic was displacement of people. So they brought in other people to live there. And according to what happens in Sefer Melachim, it says they started to die. And these lions came and attacked them. And because of the lions came to attack, they realized we must be doing something wrong. They found a Kohen who would teach them the laws. They learned the laws, and then they kept the laws of the land, and then they stopped dying. So there's a whole big debate within halacha. How do we treat these people? Are they called gerei arayot? They're not real converts because they were forced into it. That's not conversion. If you convert based out of force, right? That's not conversion. Or do we say that it's gerei amet? Well, maybe it started off with the wrong intents, but eventually they became to be Jews who really converted. So do we treat them as converts? So we're going to see who our Mishnah goes by. So it sounds like our Mishnah is categorizing them with Gentiles, which would then assume we can't accept their shekels. So that sounds kind of like they're not really considered like Jews. But we'll see this may be different interpretations here. And you can't accept from them. At this point, it seems like we're talking about both the Gentiles and the Kutim. We can't accept from them any sacrifices like the Zava sacrifice or the Zav, right? These are the kinim, the pairs of birds that they have to bring, or the Yoldot, the ones who give birth, or chatat, sin and guilt offerings. What's the rules? Zaklal. If it's something that's just a voluntary offering, we can accept from them, right? We talk about in the Nevi'im, there's talks about non-Gentiles coming, bringing sacrifices in the temple. We can accept that, but we can't accept things that are obligatory, okay? Also not the machatzira shekel. That goes to cover our obligatory sacrifices. And it was very clear from Ezra, you have no part in building the temple. And later we're going to talk about what if they want to give something to the Bedek Habayit, to the upkeep of the temple. Is that allowed? So it sounds like from the pasuk in Ezra, that's not allowed because they can't be involved in the building. So now the Mishnah continues on to a different topic. Kalbon is a certain coin that they would have to give in addition. Okay? Besides bringing a machatzira shekel, they had to bring a kalbon. We're going to see why they had to bring a kalbon. Okay, there's two reasons given. One is Rabbi Meir, who says, and I'm kind of giving away some things we're going to see after, but Rabbi Meir holds the kalbon is a din mideoraita from the Torah. And the reason is because there was a certain amount that the machatzira shekel was worth at the time of the Torah. And we don't know It could be we have a shekel coin that devalued a little bit, that some of it's worn away. Remember, then it was all the value of the silver itself. Maybe it's devalued or whatever it's made of. And in that case, we have to add a little bit more to make sure. Another possibility is that it's a commission, that we have to pay commission to the shulchani, right? There's all these people working, they have to get a commission on their work. So maybe it's because of that. So elu shechayavim b'kabon. Now, who has to pay this extra fee? Leviyim, v'Yisraelim, v'gerim, v'avadim v'shuchorim. These are basically all the people that are obligated for this shekel. Aval lo kohanim v'nashim v'avadim uktanim. So kohanim, we saw there was a debate whether they have to bring it or not. Even if they are obligated to bring, still we could see that maybe they were exempted from this surtax, okay? And they don't have to pay. V'nashim v'avadim uktanim, but right, also they're not obligated. So it's true they can give if they want, but they don't have to pay the extra kalbo. What if hashokel al yad kohen, al yad isha, al yad eved, al yad katan? What if I'm giving on behalf of one of those people? Now, it wouldn't be me because I'm a woman, I'm patur anyway, but let's say a man gives on behalf of any of those people. Also, he's exempt from that extra charge, patur. Ve'im shakal al yado, v'al yad chavero. What if I give 1 shekel for you and for me? Okay, then chayav b'kalbon echad. Okay, then I'm only obligated 1 kalbon because it's 1 transaction, right? So the commission is only for 1, even though I paid for 2 people. Rabbi Meir Homer shnei kalbonot. He says, no, you still have to pay 2, and that makes sense because if we're worried about it being less, then this whatever I pay for both of us could be less times 2, so I have to pay 2. Hanoten sela v'notel shekel. What if, this is a very weird halacha, we're going to have to understand it better when we get to the Gemara. Very hard to understand. If I give a sela is worth a whole shekel. And I get back, it's a little tricky because shekel is the shekel of the Torah, which is a sela. But a sela in their currency was was double their shekel. It was 2 shekalim of their time. So it's a little bit tricky because we're talking about currencies in different times. So a sela, you just have to assume right now that a sela is worth a shekel by the Torah value of a shekel of what we're looking for. And a shekel in their times is worth a half a shekel. So if I give, basically what this means is if I give a whole shekel, which is a sela, and then I get back change. Okay, now you would view that as how many transactions? 1 transaction, right? So how many kalbons? 1. But we're going to see here that this is viewed as 2 transactions and you're chayav shnei kalbonot. So I gave the shulchani a sela, and because he had to return change to me, we pay 2 kalbonot. We'll see why. There's different interpretations. Is this only Rabbi Meir? Is it also Chachamim? What is it exactly? We'll see in the Gemara. Hashokel al yad ani, al yad shcheno, al yad ben yiro. Now, before we said if I give for you and for me. Now, the idea here was I was giving, but you were going to pay me back. It's just that I'm paying it in 1 payment, okay? But for both of us. So now, what if, but you're going to pay me back the money. What if I give it as a gift for someone? I pay for a poor person, or for my shechen, or for my ben yiro. Patul, I don't have to pay this transaction fee, okay? Because I'm paying for somebody else, I'm giving them as a gift, I don't have to pay. V'im hilvan, but if I loaned it to them, meaning I said, I'll pay for you and you'll pay me back later, then chayav. You could see why this would be, because otherwise everyone would just have someone else pay for them and then no one would have to pay this kalbon, and then, right, that would be the end of it. Now we're going to talk about ha'achim hashutafim. If you have brothers, some people say it's ha'achim v'hashutafim. Okay, brothers, the concept is they inherited money and they went into partnership together. Now we're going to see what exactly that means, what the order is. They got their inheritance, they split it up, then they became partners again. Now, we have to know some other halacha, which is the 10th of your animal is sanctified, has to go be brought as a sacrifice in the temple. But there's an exemption because it says in the verse there, let me just pull it out. Where did I put it here? The verse says in Shmot Yud Gimel, Yud Gimel Yud Bet, Asher Yehiyeh Lecha. Okay, it's a little bit different, but it's Asher Yelecha, that's yours. Yours meaning singular, not if you own something as a partner with someone. If you're in partnership with someone, you're actually exempt from this Maaser Behema. So the Achim Hashutafim, now they're going to say it depends what kind of shutafut you have. There's different kinds of partnerships. Some are obligated in Maaser Behema and some are not obligated in Maaser Behema. So we're now going to compare that type of partnership and what the relevance is for Maaser Behema. If you're shutafim, shechayavim bekalbon, You're ptulim mimaser behema. If you're obligated, let's put it this way, if you're going to be exempt from maser behema because you're shutafim, you're partners, then you're going to be obligated in the kalbon. In other words, these two brothers who got their inheritance, split it up, then became partners again. It's as if they're two separate people, so they're going to be obligated to kalbon when they pay together. But but if they're obligated in maser behema because they're viewed as if they're just one and they're together, basically the way you would say it is, this is the estate of the father paying. The estate of the father pays, and everything is owned by the estate. That's one owner, not multiple owners, in which case they'll be obligated to maser behema, in which case they're going to be exempt from the kalbon because it's like the estate is paying for them. It's like they're not paying themselves, only if you pay yourself. But if someone else pays for you, then you're not obligated. So if their kalbon, their machatzit shekel comes out of the estate, then they're going to be exempt from the kalbon. So it all depends. Now, the case is going to be, we're going to see this in the Gemara, where they did split up the inheritance, but then they got back together. The question is, depending on how they did it, that's going to affect the laws, both of maser behema and the laws of kalbon. So again, it's the reverse. If they're obligated maser behema, they'll be exempt from the kalbon, or the reverse. And we're going to get to this more in detail in the Gemara. Kamahu kalbon, the last part of the Mishnah. How much is this kalbon? It's quite important to know. Me'ah kesef divrei Rabbanit. Chachamim omrim chatzi ma'ah. Now that might not help you because we don't know what a ma'ah is, but a ma'ah we're going to see is a 12th of the machatzit shekel. And the chatzi ma'ah is 1/24 of the machatzit shekel, right? That's the important ratio because you want to know, see, it's actually a sixth of a dinar because a dinar is shekel, 2 shekels to the dinar. A dinar is a selah. It's just the same word. We just saw that a selah is 2 shkalim, right? Sorry, a selah is a shekel, my mistake. No, it's a dinar. So it's a sixth of a dinar and it's a 12th of a shekel, of the machatzit. 12th of the machatzit shekel. So now they're going to say, sorry, I got a little confused with all the currencies, but it's a 12th of the shekel. So that's important to know. What ratio is it to the machatzit shekel that you're obligated in, or is it 1/24? So now we have to go back to the Mishnah because now the Gemara is going to start with the very beginning. Even though it says, right? But if they did, right, then you can accept them. So now the Gemara is going to say, Halidboa ein tovim. Now wait, this seems to imply if, right, but lidboa, you can't demand money from them because it sounds like, why does it sound that way? Because it says, just one second, I want to check one thing. Right, let me just get the currency right because I said it a little confusing. So I just want to look it up and just say it. I'm going back. So me'ah is a sixth of a dinar and a dinar is a half a shekel. Okay, it was the opposite of what I said. It's a half a shekel. Okay, so, what we call a shekel. Okay, so it's half a shekel. So a dinar is, right, shuma chatzira shekel shel Torah. Right, it's a dinar is half a shekel, which is the shekel that we call, right? So me'ah is 1/12 of the machatzira shekel. Yeah, that was right. Okay, and that's 1/24 of the machatzira shekel. Okay, so now, our Mishnah seems to imply, litboa ein tovim, okay, meaning you can't demand from them. Why? Because it said, if they gave of their own volition, great. It sounds like you can't demand from them. Now, what did we see yesterday? Remember we said, means you can't take collateral, but you can demand from them, right? We had that whole thing. So in the previous Mishnah, we said, you can demand money from them. You just can't take a collateral, but you can say, hey, pay up. But our Mishnah seems like you can't say, hey, pay up. It's all volunteer. And we're talking specifically about the katan, the young child, which again, we said wasn't sure what young was. And here we're going to answer exactly as we did yesterday. So there's 3 stages in the development of a child that we're going to discuss here. One is, there's really only 2 stages of being a child. And we're going to split between those 2 stages. The first stage is from 0 till age of having 2 pubic hairs, which is usually around 13. From that age to that age, they're exempt entirely. If they want to bring, they can. Okay, there's a whole debate, a whole discussion. How can you accept money from them? Because they can't what's called makneh. They can't actually, their transactions are not meaningful because they're young children. So how could they even possibly give and you can accept from them? Because then the temple's going to have what we call theoretically stolen property. right? It's not really their property. So now let's just assume, okay, there's a question asked, there are answers given to that, but that's a bit of a question. From age, let's say around 13 to age 20, they don't have to give. I'm sorry, they have to give, and you can actually demand money from them. However, we don't take collateral. Once they're 20, we take collateral. So that's the difference between the three, right? 20 is already, they're not considered a katan. They're already a full-fledged adult for these purposes. Now, hanochri v'akuti. Now we're going to get to this part about the nochri and the kuti, and we're going to have a little bit of confusing ways about how to read this Mishnah. Okay, different types of readings of our Mishnah. How exactly do we read it? Amar, and who does it go according to? Amar Rabiban. The first explanation is Tipater Kamanda Amal Kuti Kinochri. We can assume that our Mishnah means kuti is kinochri. Okay, that a kuti is like a Gentile. To eat palgun, because we have a machloket about this, as I told you. Kuti kinochri tiveri Rabbi. Kuti ki Israel lechol davar. So that's exactly how we viewed it. Is a kuti like a Gentile, or is a kuti like a Jew? So it must be, our Mishnah says, because it puts it in the category with the Gentile, that we're going to treat him like a Gentile. But Amar Rabbi Elazar, matnita benochrim, ha bekutim lo. He says, no, our Mishnah is talking about nochrim and not kutim. Now, you can't possibly say that. It says kutim. So what he's going to say is the first part of our Mishnah means, okay, kuti v'anochri v'akuti sheshaklu ein mekablim mehem. We don't accept the machatzit shekel from them. And that we learn from the Mishnah, even if you say kuti ki Yehudi. But the second part, we're going to say, when it comes to their sacrifices, we can accept sacrifices from kutim. We just, when it comes to the kinei zavim, yodot, all that, when it says you can't, that's talking about nochrim specifically. And here he proves it. Betane, Ken, there's a braita that says like this. Adam, okay, this is Adam ki akriv mikem. It's a pasuk about bringing sacrifices. And it says Adam, and it says mikem, a person who sacrifices, who wants to bring a sacrifice from among you. So Adam is going to include, and from among you, from is always excluding someone, not everybody. So now we're going to see Adam lirabot et hagerim. Adam includes gerim. So gerim are going to be including the gerim of the kutim, okay, who are shomronim. I see someone's writing Samaritans. That's the translation of shomronim. Okay, there's a debate always about how to treat them. Are they considered Jews or are they not? So that includes gerim. Mikem lehotziat hamumarim. From among you, well, we can't accept sacrifices from everybody. Who's it going to exclude? It's going to exclude people who left the Jewish religion. Okay, that's called a mumam. So basically, you see the gerim are included, which means the kutim are allowed to bring, certainly according to Rabbi Shimon and Gamliel, who views them as gerei amet. They were true converts. So now they're going to say, but wait, matnita pliga Rabbi Elazar. Mishnah doesn't seem to work with Rabbi Elazar. Why? Because it says, and what he's going to assume is, the second part of the Mishnah, ein mekablim kinei zavim, kinei zavot, kinei yodot, chataot v'ashamot, and zeh klal, kol shenidar v'nidav, you can accept, not, otherwise you can't. We're going to assume that basically is referring only to the nochrim. We started with both, and then we move only to nochrim, and then we can say the kutim are still gerei amet, and we can't accept their sacrifices. But now the Gemara is going to say, wait, the Mishnah doesn't make so much sense according to him. Why? How could that possibly be? There's no such thing as a zav by a nochri or a zava by a nochri. They don't have such things. So how could that be? Ella reisha b'nochrim v'sefa b'kutim. So now, okay, so let's stop for a minute. Let's just explain that very clearly so it's clear. So again, he wanted to say the beginning was kutim and nochrim, okay, and I charted this at the bottom of the first side of the sheet. And ein mekablim mi'adam kinei zavim, kinei zavot, and all that is talking about nochrim only, because you really can't accept that from kutim. And then the Mishnah matches from Shimon Gamliel also. However, the Gemara now says, ela reisha b'nochrim v'sefa b'kutim. Now, it's a bit of a strange question. The Gemara is going to reject this question, but the question seems to be saying, they assumed the main topic here was Gentiles. Kutim, maybe because Kutim were less common I don't know, although there were kutim around, so I'm not really sure, but maybe they're saying, how could you possibly, and I don't know historically what was happening in the time of Rabbi Elazar and in the time of the Amoraim in Eretz Israel, whether there were really kutim around. But he said that Gentiles is the main topic here. It's really all about Gentiles. You're saying they left the main topic and moved on only to, one second, wait a minute. Sorry, I skipped some line here. Sorry, I skipped the important line. Let's go back. So they said the Mishnah, right? There is no Zavim and Zavot for Nochrim. So now we're going to say, therefore, since there's, let's just go back for one quick minute. They said the Mishnah clearly disagrees with Rabbi Elazar because there are no Kinei Zavim and Zavot for Nochrim, which means it must be talking about Kutim. So this is it must be discussing Kutim, okay, in the second part of the Mishnah, which is a difficulty with Rabbi Elazar. Now the Gemara is going to say, how could you possibly read the difficulty on Rabbi Elazar is going to be difficult? That's where I got confused for a second. It's the difficulty on him. Why? Wait a minute. How could we leave the main topic of Nochrim and all of a sudden talk only about Kutim? If you're going to say the Kinei Zavim and Kinei Yoldot and all that is only Kutim, the main topic was Gentiles. How'd you all of a sudden leave Gentiles and talk about Kutim? To which they answer, what's the big deal? Kenhu. Yeah, we started with Nochrim and Kutim. And then we ended with Kutim only. So we have three ways to read the Mishnah, okay? The first way, and this is a good summary. The first way is to read according to the way the Mishnah reads like Rebbe, which is Kutim are Nochrim all the way. They're not considered Jews, in which case the whole Mishnah, that whole section, is talking about Kutim and Nochrim, both the line about we don't accept the shekel and the line that we don't accept their Kinei Zavim, Yodot, all that. Then we have a second option, which is we start with both of them. Everyone agrees we start with both. Rabbi Elazar says, then we move off of the Kutim because we really actually do accept their Kinei Zavim, Zavot, all that. We just don't accept them from Gentiles. To which the response was, no, there's no such, why would you even be talking about that about Gentiles? That part must be talking specifically only about Kutim, which again seems to say that it can't be the Kutim are Gerei Emet. It must be only according to Rabbi. That was the question on Rabbi Elazar, but Rabbi Elazar still has his, in other words, we raised a question. How could you have Kinim by Nochrim? But that's what he says. Okay. So therefore he thinks the Mishnah could work with the opinion of Kutim are actually Jews. And therefore we drop the Kutim off at the end of that Mishnah. Whereas according to the other interpretation again, we don't. Rabbi Elazar is Rabbi Elazar. It's your question, Becky. It's Rabbi Elazar. Often we're going to see letters drop and all sorts of things. Names sound a little different, but they're exactly the same names. Okay, so it's the same Rabbi Elazar that we always see, who's the student of Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, next section. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. B'tchila ein mekablim mehen lo davar mesuyam v'lo davar she'eno mesuyam. We ended the section in the Mishnah with saying that in the time of Ezra, they wouldn't accept, right? There were Gentiles who wanted to bring stuff to the temple, and they said, no, we don't want you to have any part in the building of the temple. So now we're going to distinguish between, was he only talking about the time of the temple, or was he talking about even not in the time of the temple? Okay, so that's a very big question. So now we're going to say, Rabbi Yochanan says, that's the B'tchila and Basof. B'tchila is when they built the temple, and Basof is the continuation, all going forward, right? There's not just you need things to build the temple in the beginning, but there's always constant upkeep, and there's constant need for more things in the temple. So is there a difference between the beginning and the end? So Rabbi Yochanan says, B'tchila ein mekablim mehem lo davar mesuyam v'lo davar she'eno mesuyam. What is davar mesuyam, davar eno mesuyam? Sounds like something specific, okay? But if you look in Taklin Chadatin, he says, by the way, there was a student of the Gra, the Taklin Chadatin. And I didn't explain this, but Taklin Chadatin means Shekalim Chadashim. Okay, Taf and Shin switch. So Taklin is Shekalim and Chadatin is Chadashim. Okay, so that's his name. It's the new shekel. Okay, it's obviously a kind of, that's not his name. That was his commentary on Masechet Shekalim. So now, he says, Davar Mesuyam is Davar Chashuv Shenikar V'nir'a Be'en. Okay, we can't accept something that's known like an object, an item that we're going to associate with that Gentile. We don't want things like that in the temple. They're talking about Bayit Sheni because we're not in Bayit Rishon anymore. This is all Bayit Sheni, right? All the halachot are always relating to the second temple time period. Okay, so that's davar mesuyam. Okay, davar she'eno mesuyam, Takun Chadatin says it's something like water or salt, something that's not long lasting. It's not very specific. It's like a general item that just gets used, but something that's going to remain there. It's like when you go to a shul and the windows were donated by so-and-so, and right. So all the things in the temple had to be from Jews, anything that was noticeable, not from a Gentile. So he says, that's what he says right now. So bitchila, you can't accept even davar she'eno mesuyam. When you were building the temple, even things that weren't noticeable weren't accepted. But when it comes to baself, but down the road, mikablim mehen davar she'eno mesuyam ve'em mikablim mehem davar mesuyam. You can't accept something that's not specific. You just can't accept something that's specific and noticed. By the way, I've charted this out on the next sheet, on the second side of the sheet, and you'll see we're going to have, so basically, Rish Lakish says, no can do, nothing. Not even davar she'eno mesuyam, not even down the road. Now we're going to have a question on Rabbi Yochanan, an answer, then two questions on Rish Lakish. Matnita pliga Rabbi Yochanan. There's a Braita that disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan. It says, you can't accept from them hekdesh, anything that's, what's hekdesh? Hekdesh is I'm sanctifying something to the temple, and then it goes to, right, its value goes to the bedek habayit, to upkeep of the temple. You can't accept hekdesh or nidava for bedek habayit, for upkeep of the temple. So here it sounds like you can't accept anything. Paterla, so this is very easy to answer. What they meant was something important. Okay, those kind of things we can't accept. Some people read these in parentheses. Some people don't have these words. The paterla b'mesuyam shafilu ma'otav yolichem li'amelech, or maybe it's something specific. Anyway, we'll leave that one aside. Ramashem ben Lakish Omer. So now we're moving on to Rish Lakish. They're just repeating his words, which is nothing can be accepted for them, even unimportant things. Matnita pliga Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Again, there's a Braita, or it's a Mishnah, I think, that disagrees with Rish Lakish. Detane. Hakol shavim shehen nodrim v'nidarim. Okay, to understand this, you have to understand the background. There's a machloket, Rabbi Meir. Okay, there's two different things one can bring to the temple. You can bring erchin, and you can bring a neder. What's the difference? Erchin is what it says in the Torah. There's a value given for a male from this age to this age, and under this age and over this age is less. And there's female and a value for a female. And this is based on, there's a Torah, the Torah assigns a particular value. So even if the value of that person is less or more or changed, it doesn't make a difference. We go by the value in the Torah. That's erchin. Then there's neder, which is you can give the value of a person to the temple. Again, what does it mean? Both of these are giving the value of a person to the temple. But if you do it in the lashon of a neder and not the lashon of erchin, then the law is it's based on the value of that person in the shuk. Now, what does it mean the value of a person in the shuk? Right, first of all, you're not donating a person, you're just donating their value. Instead, right, this is the way people spoke, donating the value of so-and-so to the temple. If I donate the value and I do it as a neder, then we're going to have specifically, it's going to be whatever that person's value is on the shuk. What does that mean on the shuk? It means if you were sold to be a slave, what would you go for? Okay, if you're missing an arm, let's say you're going to be worth less or something like that. So it goes by the value and what it is at that time and not based on the Torah value. So there's a difference in the law between them. And there's a debate between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda about whether there's erchin for a Gentile or not. Now, there's two ways you can have erchin for a Gentile. One is, can the Gentile say, I'm giving the value of, erchin alai, and I'm giving the value of whoever, whether it's a Jewish person or a Gentile, it doesn't matter. Can a Gentile do that? Okay. Or actually, it maybe does matter. We'll talk about it. Can a Gentile do that? Let's say give the value of a Jew. Can he say erchin alai? Or can a Jew say, I'm giving the value of a Gentile to the temple? And they each have the opposite opinion. Okay, one says he can do erchin, but you can't do his value. And one says the opposite. You can't do a value of a Gentile. The values are values of the Jews talked about in the Torah, but a Gentile can give the value of a Jew. Or I don't remember which I said before, but it's basically flipped. Okay, but then it says, but they both agree, shehem nodrim v'nidarim. But they both agree that only is true for erchin. They have this machloket. But when it comes to the world of neder, where you say, I'm giving the value, the monetary value of someone to the temple in the lashon of demei ploni alai, rather than it's mainly your language that you use, as opposed to erchin alai, okay, erech ploni alai, then in the world of neder, it works. They can bring. Now, what's the problem? Well, where does the money go to? If they're bringing it, it must go to the temple upkeep. And it says here that, right, you can't. So now they say, right, Rish Lakish says, you can't bring anything to the temple, right? He says, not davar mesuyam, not davar she'eno mesuyam, right? According to Rabbi Yochanan, you could say, well, maybe it goes to davar she'eno mesuyam, but the value of what he brings. But how could you say it according to Rish Lakish? So, patrola ola. He says, oh, it goes to a korban ola. Remember we said they could bring voluntary offerings. So they could bring a voluntary burnt offering, and that would work. So they say, wait, nicha, that works if nodrim ola, right? They take a neder of an ola. But nidarim ola, but what about if they say, if a Jew says, I'm giving the value of a Gentile to the temple, right? Nidarim, you can't say that means, okay, nidarim, I made a mistake. Nidarim means that I'm saying that a Gentile is going to commit to bring something to the temple, okay? Nodrim is the Gentile commits himself. Nidarim means I say the Gentile I'm committing the Gentile to bring. So the Gemara says, what the heck? You can't commit to a Gentile bringing a korban ola, like there's no meaning to that. Well, what on earth could that possibly mean? So they say, no. What it means is, it's not what it means. Ela kisha amal Yisrael harei alai ola. The case is, I said I'm bringing an ola. I'm a Jew. V'shamanu chrin, a Gentile heard va'amal masha amal ze alai. Whatever he said, I'm doing. Or whatever she said in this case, I'm doing. So now that's nidarim. Nidarim means he kind of jumps on someone else's neder. Okay, we're going to see this when we get to nidarim. There's a whole slew of cases where someone says, "Oh, and me too." Okay, I'm doing this also. So now that's the case of nidarim. So now you can see where it would work. At first they were just saying that what possible kind of case you can't force a nochri to bring something to the temple. That can't be nidarim. Must be this case. So now basically, in order to explain Rish Lakish, we say that what kind of nidarim and nodrim is when the context is they're bringing a sacrifice, a burnt offering, and not that they're bringing an individual, something for the Bedek Habayit, because that already we said they can't bring. We can't accept that. Again, according to Rish Lakish, that we can't accept anything. Now we have another question. Wait a minute. If you're going to assume, and this is based on the answer of the first question, we're going to assume it goes to an ola. What did we learn yesterday? You remember? Ola comes with nisachim. There's libations that go with it. And motar nisachim, if there's leftover nisachim, what happens to them? We saw opinions that said it goes to the klei sharet. It goes to buy utensils, vessels for the temple. So now we're going to ask the following question. Ve'ein mevi'im o nisachim. Well, if the nochri is going to give say a neder, I'm going to bring a burnt offering, which is the way we just explained that case. Then it obviously is going to come with nisachim, and if it comes with nisachim, motar nisachim lo klei sharet inun. Don't they go to klei sharet? Which means nimtza mevi davar mesuyam. It could be that if a Gentile promises a burnt offering, gives X amount of money, buys the animal, then buys the nisachim, and there's leftover nisachim, what happens to them? They get sold, and we give them to the temple for Bedek Habayit. So now we have a problem, because if we allow nochrim to bring olot, they're going to end up bringing Bedek Habayit, and Rish Lakish said they can't bring anything to the temple. So Etiv Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Boon, he answers the following. Hataninan, he says, but wait, there's another place where we have a similar issue. The nochrim are ne'erachim ve'orchim. Okay, so now this is what we said before. According to Rabbi Meir, they can be ne'erachim, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, they can be orchim, right? Whether you can say, I'm giving the value of a Gentile, or someone else could say, right, or the Gentile could say, I'm giving the value of a Jew to the temple. Now, lo Bedek Habayit inun, where are those erchim going? Are they not going to Bedek Habayit? They're also going to Bedek Habayit. When you give erchim, the whole value, what you're giving, goes to the Bedek Habayit. It doesn't go to a korban ola. So, hech mata amar taman, how can you possibly explain that then? L'shamayim hu mitkaven, this is a great line. Ume elehen him ba'in lebedek habayit. Their goal is just to give money to the temple. It's not that they're giving specifically, right? When someone gives money to a shul and they say, I wanted to go to stained glass windows, or I wanted to go to the Aron Kodesh, or I wanted to go. No, they're just giving money. They're just saying, I want to give a gift to God. I believe in God in some way. I want to give a gift to his temple. That's what the Gentile says. He's l'shamayim hu mitkaven. He's intending to God and wanting to give to God's temple. He doesn't care what it goes to. It's not that he's thinking of this is going to go to Bet HaKabayit. Then once the money's in the temple, where's it going to go? Well, there's nowhere else for it really to go other than Bet HaKabayit. But that's not like him giving directly to Bet HaKabayit. The problem is in giving something specific to the Bet HaKabayit. But it goes there. So therefore, Kenat Amar Hacha, you're going to say the same thing here. L'shamayim hu mitkaven. He's really just trying to give to God, just right. Likewise here in this case of the neder. In other words, he's giving it for korban olah. In the end, if there's something left over, yes, it's true, it's going to buy some utensil, but already it's no longer connected with the name of that Gentile anymore because it's already kind of changed hands and it's already turned into something else. So we've kind of explained it a little bit differently than we started with, because now it sounds like you can give as long as it's, kind of going a little indirectly to the Bet HaKabayit. Now the last thing we're going to end with this section is my Avid Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, which means where does he get it from? Again, we go back to this pasuk in Ezra. We don't want them to have any involvement in the building of the Beit Hashem, and that's why you can't even give davar she'eno mesuyam to the temple. Rabbi Chizkiah Amar. It's a big question in general. It's interesting to think about the difference between them, about whether we can use, maybe this is an interesting question about taking money from Christian evangelists, right? Whether we can take money for charities in Israel, right? There's many people who like to give money and people debate whether that's okay or not, right? It's a similar debate here. It's a question of what the focus is. Is it just temple oriented? Because it's the temple of God, maybe it's not appropriate, but maybe for other things, yes. Right? It's a whole question. Rabbi Chizkiah Amar, Rabbi Simon Sha'al Me'ata, Ein mekablim mehen amat hamayim u'lechamot ha'ir u'migdalotea. Al Shem v'lachem ein chelek. If you're going to say that, then already we have to go farther and to say they can't even build things in Jerusalem. Why? Because there's a verse in Nehemiah, Perek Bet, Pasuk Bet, chapter 2, verse 2. And the end of that Pasuk verse says, Ein chelek u'tzdaka. Okay, v'lachem, vanenu, right? He's talking to the Gentiles there, and he says, v'lachem ein chelek u'tzdaka v'zikaron b'Yerushalayim. You can't have a part or a memorial in Jerusalem. So it sounds like we can't even use their money to build items in Jerusalem. Okay, it's finished off that section. Now we're moving on to the next section about the Kalbon and Rabbi Meir's approach. There's a bit of a Girsa issue, as usual here. I told you there's a lot of Girsa problems in the Yerushalmi. So all this stuff is in parentheses. We're going to skip it. And then the next word, Matnita, really should be read as my time. What's the reason for Rabbi Meir? And I already told you this, but now we'll read it inside. Rabbi Meir, Kashem sheshiklo Torah, kach kalbono Torah. Just like the shekel is a Torah obligation, the kalbon is also a Torah obligation. Now, very strange. It doesn't say anywhere you have to bring a kalbon. Where do we get this from the Torah? Kasava Rabbi Meir benoten shiklo shalem shehu chayav bekalbon. If you give a whole shekel, which is meaning a half a shekel, that was the value of the shekel in their times, it was half a shekel valued, that you're obligated this kalbon. De'amar Rabbi Meir, how do we know this? Because he described kimin matbea shel esh hotzia kadosh baruch hu mitachat kisei hakavod beher'au leMoshe va'amar lo ze yitnu kazeh yitnu. It says ze yitnu. Okay, the verse is ze yitnu. This is what they will give. Kol over al pikudim. If you remember, we had this not so long ago in Psachim. There's a whole thing. Benenu zeh. Remember when the Ben Sorer and Mered, the parents point and say, "Our son, this son," which they learned. If the parents are blind, they can't have their son be a Ben Sorer or Mered. They have to be able to see him. To which we tried to explain, and there was a debate. Does the same thing apply for Pesach? Ba'avor zeh asa Hashem li'v'tzetim mitzrayim. What is zeh? You have to be able to see the matzah and the maror, and in the time of the temple, the korban Pesach. So some said that zeh also means you have to point to it. If you can't point to it and you can't see, then you're not obligated. Others said no, that zeh is needed because there's no other way to say the verse otherwise, and therefore it's not open for a drasha, in which case a blind person is obligated in all the mitzvot of the Seder. So there's a debate about that. But the zeh comes up in other places where there's a midrash, and it's funny they don't mention this in the section. We saw it in the Bavli. I think we saw it already in this cycle, which is there's 3 places where it says zeh, like zot haminoah, where Moshe didn't know how to do it, and God showed him this is the way it should look. So this is another one of those things where God showed him you bring a shekel like this, which means that it's a Torah obligation to bring it exactly as it was then, which is why, according to Rabbi Meir, we have to bring a kalbon because maybe our shekel isn't exactly, and we have to add a little bit more to make sure that ours is valued the same value. So he thinks it's still right. So now we have to get to this weird case that we saw before that we needed help understanding. Natan sela litol shekel chayav shtei kabonot. If I give a sela and I get a shekel in back, then I have to give shtei kabonot. So Amar Rabbi Elazar ti Rabbi Meir hi. This is Rabbi Meir's approach. Detanya elu chayavim b'kabon, kabon echad. Rabbi Meir omer shnei kabonot. So this is just his approach. He says, in this case, you have to give shnei kabonot, right? Why do you have to give two according to him? Because there's two issues. One is according to Rabbi Meir, and that he doesn't disagree with the commission. He basically says you have to bring also the commission and also because the value, it might have gone down in value. Amar Rav divrei kohi. Rav says, no. This is actually according to everyone. And how do I know this? Da'amar Rabbi Meir, echad shekel shu noten, ve'echad shekel shu notel, ve'echad l'divrei Torah. And al da'atei d'Rav shlosha kabonot inun. Really, it's actually not really divrei hakol. What he's saying is it's divrei chachamim that you have to bring two. And Rabbi Meir actually requires three in this case. Why? As I told you before, even though we don't view it this way, two transactions happened. One was I passed the sela onto the money changer. He passed me back shekel, which is really a half a shekel, which means I passed him money. On that, I have to pay a kalbon, and he had to give me money. On that, I also have to pay a kalbon. So I have to pay two kalbon. According to Rabbi Meir, you also need a third because of the devaluation. Ata, Rabbi Yirmiyah, he's going to basically say the same thing that Rav says. Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak b'shem Rav, shlosha kabonot inun, as he passes this down in the name of Rav. Here's just further proof that Rav said this. Echad shekel shu noten, ve'echad shekel shu notel, ve'echad l'divrei Torah. Okay, l'dvar Torah. So that's Rabbi Meir that you actually need three. Okay, so the question is the two kabonot in that case, is it just Rabbi Meir who needs two kabonot in general, or is it it's really chachamim, and then Rabbi Meir actually requires three? Okay, we'll end with this idea of the achim hashutafim, and we'll finish it up tomorrow because it goes into tomorrow's daf. Ha'achim v'hashutafim shechayavim b'kalbon u'pturim mima'aser behema. What's that case? Where again they're going to be obligated in a kalbon, but exempt from ma'aser behema. B'shechalku v'chazru v'nishtatfu. If we divided up all the property between you, let's say you're my sibling, we divide up all the property from the estate, and then we decide to go into partnership together, right? We decide to have family business. At that point, what will happen? We'll be exempt from Aser Behema, but we're going to, because from Aser Behema, you have to be an individual owner, and it's not, they're partners. But because we're partners, we're two separate people that join together. When our money is two separate monies that join together, which means we're each high of a kalbon, okay? Because it's not like the estate is paying for us. Remember, if the estate is paying for the children, then, and as they're not even children, they're grown right now, but if the estate is paying for them, it's as if someone else is paying for them, and it's like a gift, and you're not obligated to kalbon. In this case, they're basically, it's not the estate paying, they're just two brothers that decided to do a business together. But what's the case where it's the reverse? Shechayavim b'maser behema u'pturim min kalbon b'shelo chilku. Okay, that's the case where they didn't divide, it's just the estate. If it's the estate, and the estate pays for them, so then it's one owner from Aser Behema. And not only that, but we're going to learn, has to be born under that owner, was born under the father, so they're obligated. Number two, they're going to be exempt from the kalbon because it's if the father's estate is paying for them. Amar Rabbi Elazar, v'hen shechalku, it depends exactly how they divided. When you said they divided and they became partners, well, it depends how. Hen shechalku g'diim keneged tiashim utiashim keneged g'diim. That's if when we split up the inheritance, I decided I'm taking the baby goats and you're taking the, I forgot the tayish is a ram or something. You're taking the rams. In other words, we divided it up, not exactly, you get 5 of those and I get 5 of those. I get 5 of that animal and you get 5 of the other animal, which means we didn't divide it up exactly evenly, which means that I said, listen, I'm taking the gedim. I don't care about the tayashim. It's as if I'm purchasing the rights to the gedim from you. Then when we go back together and become partners again, and we put all the G'diim and the Tiyashim together, then it's as if it's a new partnership, okay? And that's what he was talking about, that we're considered partners and not part of the estate. If we split up exactly 50-50 with everything, then when we get back together, it's as if we're back to the original estate, because I never gave up my rights to anything else. It was just, I took this, you took that. But when we put back together, it's as if it was all ours to begin with, which means it's as if it's one estate paying. And then again, they become together and they're not partners. They're just under one estate, in which case, again, they won't be obligated in the kalbon and they will be obligated in maser behema. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, he disagrees. He says, no. So these people are viewed as buyers. In other words, even when we split a 50-50, there's a great, we don't have time to discuss. It's a great discussion about splitting up inheritance, right? Let's say you decide later you want to swap something, right? Does your sibling have more rights to something that they took in the first place than you do? Okay, right? And usually we say they do, right? When you split it up, you split it up. Theirs is theirs, yours is yours. We're now separate. This is saying it really depends how you split it up. Everything was equal, and then you come back together. It's as if you never split up in the first place. Rabbi Yochanan says, what are you talking about? No. Even if we split 50-50 and you got exactly what I got and they look the same, and no, you basically purchased rights to yours, and you basically said, I'm not taking yours back anymore. So when we get back together, it's as if it's a new partnership and it's not viewed as the estate anymore. Kahu de taman de taninan taman, as it says in the Mishnah, halakoch shenitano b'matana patur mimaser bema. Anyone who purchased anything, and these people are considered buyers, if you purchase animals, you're exempt from maser behema because it has to be born under you. So these children are considered buyers. Once they're considered buyers, they're going to be exempt from maser behema, even if they get back together again, according to Rabbi Yochanan. And also someone shenitano b'matana, if you got it as a gift, you're also going to be patur mimaser behema. Finish here for now, and we'll pick up with this topic tomorrow. Have a great day.